Alrighty, we are live. Let me just check in my inputs and also turn off my heater and also take off my earrings because I'm recording this as a podcast episode, so earrings are not a good thing to do or to have while you're recording something on the microphone. All right, so just waiting for somebody else to join me while we have a few people. All right, cool. So let me just hit the record button and we'll begin. All right, everyone, welcome to this live, Instagram live that I'm doing now, but also if you're a listener of the episode of the podcast, welcome as well. Today we are talking about rule number 6 of the 10 rules of being claimed. And this is really like we're halfway through our 10 rules of being claimed. So if you have been listening to all of them or if you've been watching a lot of them, then I wanted to say a big thank you. Also, for those of you listening, know that these are saved as videos in my IGTV. You can find me on Instagram as Anarova. So let's begin with our rule number 6, which is one of my favorite rules of the 10 rules of being claimed. And by the way, those of you who don't know me, I'm Anarova. I'm a femininity and feminine embodiment coach, and I run a powerful group coaching program for single successful women and help them to attract their committed masculine men. So rule number 6 is don't stop your funnel until you get claimed. And by the way, if you haven't watched any of the other rules, I really recommend that you do. If you're listening to the podcast, if you scroll back, you'll find all the rules before this. Or if you're watching this Instagram live or somehow watching this on IGTV, make sure that you watch the other ones. Hello. So rule number 6, don't stop your funnel until you get claimed. So in rule number 1, I've explained to you the whole idea of a dating funnel and how it looks like an inverted pyramid and how it has 3 different stages of dating, which is, from dating to a relationship. The first stage is at the top, where basically it's the awareness stage where you expose yourself to as many potential suitors as possible. And then after that, the second stage is conversion, I think it's called, but basically this is going out on dates with men. And then the third stage is obviously the relationship. Actually, the third stage is conversion, the relationship, and I can't even remember what's the second stage, but it's basically like exposing yourself to potential suitors as much as possible, then you're going on dates, and then you have a relationship. And I also talked about in that first rule that, you need to continuously date. You need to continuously make sure that you have your funnel in place so that you date and that you don't stop your funnel until you get claimed, which is this rule today. And I, in rule number 3, for example, I told you about the rule of thirds, how, I really recommend that you don't focus on one man that has called you or asked you out. You constantly continue to expose yourself and so on and so forth. So today we really talk about this side. So if actually this is a prerequisite, if you haven't watched rule number 1 or listened to it, I really recommend that you do, because this episode builds on that and this rule builds on that other rule. So basically this idea, a lot of women think that they are in a relationship with a man after, let's say, you've had 5 dates and, or especially after you became intimate or had sex. And Vanera says, exposing myself is the new normal. Yes, exactly. So, a lot of women think that, after you've had a few dates with a man, and especially if you became intimate, you are in a relationship. And it's actually a mistake to think that, in my personal view and in my personal opinion, simply because you're working on assumptions. This doesn't happen for men. Men do not assume that you are in a relationship unless things have been clearly stated or discussed. Sometimes it's clearly a natural progression towards it. And there's quite a few signs that, this is becoming a relationship that it's very, very clear to read. But a lot of the times what women do, it's all in their head because, clearly this man is into me because he keeps asking me on dates and things are becoming more serious and more intimate, and he's telling me all these things and we're having incredible sex, for example, and everything. And then you assume, oh, I am, of course, in a relationship, or I'm getting closer to it. And then somehow, at some point, you might realize that this man is actually seeing other women. And then it hits really hard. It's an actual example from a client of mine that is in a program of mine that, she's attracted this amazing committed masculine man who's sending her flowers and the conversation is great and everything. And then later on, I don't know how much time passed. I think maybe a month or two. I'm not sure about that, but she said, you know what? A girlfriend of mine messaged me saying that this man wants to take her out, and she was just sharing that. So a girlfriend, her girlfriend didn't know she was seeing this man. So imagine the shock that this woman has experienced. Hi, Amy. Imagine the shock that this woman has experienced. And so in order to avoid this disappointment and this frustration, you should assume from the beginning that you're not in a relationship until a man explicitly claims you or starts questioning this idea, or where is this going, or should we be exclusive, or something like, I want you to be my woman. And all the other rules that we've built before, we talk about the rule of thirds, how you always see men and expose yourself to different men. And this will create two things. Number one, you don't get attached to one man thinking that you're in a relationship, but it also will create competition for other men, because men love competition. But obviously, I'm just telling you the mechanics behind how this works. But when you do it genuinely, which you should, like all of the rules that I'm talking about, I hope you know that what I mean is you do it with intention and not to create an artificial environment where men have competition over you. It's not going to work, and it's never going to work on a sustainable level. So how this is going to go, so we talked about the dating funnel. You expose yourself to as many men, even if you're dating already men. You're dating 3 men, great, expose yourself to other men. I mean, I'm not talking about your calendar should be full with dates, although if you wanted to, you technically could. And honestly, if you're an amazing woman who, has great self-esteem and she's in touch with her femininity and her body, she has an amazing life, men will line up for you like there's no tomorrow. You're going to be constantly asked out, and it's an amazing feeling to have as a woman. Obviously, this should not be your goal, but your goal should be to constantly don't stop your funnel until you get claimed. This is what this rule is all about, right? Constantly expose yourself, constantly get asked on dates, and continue. And I know this might sound exhausting, but there is a way to do it very naturally, very organically, right? So when you're exposing yourself on dates, just have an interesting life and go to as many events as possible. Go out with girlfriends, expose yourself, go out by yourself. It's all about not staying home. I mean, obviously, there's a time to stay home, but as we talked about in that first rule, twice a week, how can you go out twice a week and expose yourself? How can you get intentional about putting yourself out there? Because your man is not sitting out there and knocking on your door. I mean, maybe he is, if you're an amazing woman. But, you create opportunities for yourself. It's the same thing about, there's a fly here running around, flying around. It's the same thing, when you're looking for a job. You got to put yourself out there. You got to tell the universe, hello, I'm looking for an amazing masculine man. So, exposing yourself, dating, and then continuing until you continue this whole funnel, until you get claimed. Now, what does that mean specifically? It means that the man that you're seeing and continue to see, who you assume that you're not in a relationship, you are not in a relationship until a conversation happens or there's clear signs that you are. A clear sign that you are in a relationship without even talking about it, I'll give you my example. When I was dating, seeing my man, which I totally didn't assume we're in a relationship, things were getting serious. But, I was dating, I was shopping for shoes. This is our metaphor for everybody who already has been on these lives, When you're dating 3 men at a time, at any point in time, you're shopping for shoes. And if a man asks you, are you seeing other people? Yes, I am. Why? Oh, I didn't assume this was exclusive. I don't like to assume things. There was not a conversation there. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, let's have this conversation. So the conversation about exclusivity and claiming you as his woman has to come from him. The same thing happens when the proposal once you're in a relationship, the proposal has to come from him. And yes, we live in a modern world, and kind of I've heard women proposing for men, or like if you're in a relationship and you sometimes might be pushing your man towards proposing. In my opinion, this is also not a good idea. It doesn't lead to a sustainable marriage where you are with a man who's your protector and a provider and who plays that masculine pole. I've extensively talked about this in a blog post that I wrote. I think it's called I think something like 5 things to do if he hasn't proposed yet. So go check it out. If you are in a relationship and your man is not proposing, I very much line out what to do about that. And I think there's a podcast episode, but I'm not sure. I'm so confused with all of this content and everything that's going on. I have to be a lot more organized. But anyways, so this is the same, the way you're going to set it up from the beginning. This is going to dictate how your relationship, and if you want a marriage and a family, how this is going to go with a committed masculine man. A man needs to claim you, and he actually wants to claim you, because a man really appreciates what he invests in, what he puts time, energy, and effort to pursue and to claim and to kill the hunt. A man should be ecstatic about making you his woman, being in the relationship with you, and ultimately the ultimate claim is obviously becoming his wife, and he has to feel ecstatic, and this decision has to be his, because if this decision is yours, and if you push towards a relationship or if you push towards a marriage, there's going to be built up resentment, because he will feel that he was pushed into it. And this is probably the most common mistake that women do, and I realize it's not easy, like, trust me, I know. But if you have that mentality of, I'm not in a relationship, put up a sign across your mirror, I'm not in a relationship until you get claimed. Of course, this is something that really needs to be worked on you deep down inside in your body. And this is something that I do with women in the program that I work with. And also, if you're interested in scheduling a discovery call with me, I recommend you watch my webinar if you haven't watched yet, where I outline kind of what is my philosophy and how do we go about it in my work with women. So at girlskill.com/webinar, you can do that. And I feel like this is important to talk about, because it's not only about the 10 rules of being claimed and like, don't step your funnel, whatever. A lot of the times it might work, but sometimes when women are doing all the right things, and I'm feeling that, a lot of relationship programs out there, or a lot of dating programs out there, or even dating coaches I've heard, they will tell you everything. They will tell you what I'm telling you. But a lot of the times it doesn't work. Why it doesn't work? Because if you know the rules on paper and all the text manuals, or like, get him back, here are the texts to wrap him around his finger, I'm like, what? This is nonsense. You could do that. I mean, I could also teach that, but it's mostly in your body and how you feel about yourself as a woman. And it's in your system, in your beliefs, and in your body. I'm a feminine embodiment coach, so it's all about knowing how to navigate your emotional system and showing up with men in very much of a different vibe. Not a vibe of, where is this going? ? You should not even be asking yourself this question, where is this going? Because if you have fun with men on dates, if you know who you are as a woman, and you're an embodied feminine woman, and you have an amazing life around you, men will line up for you. They will be asking you, excuse me, Amy, where is this going? I want you to be my woman because I'm having a lot of fun, and I think this woman is amazing, and I need to catch her because somebody else will catch her sooner than me. So that's the mindset you need to have. So I'm sharing with you the mindset and the rules, but of course it's all about, you need to feel it in your body, and it has to be in your system, because otherwise it's all cheap tricks and tips and whatever. It's the same thing about men. When we talk about all these men that are reading pickup books, which might, by the way, okay, very important moment. I wanted to write about this, but I guess I'm just talking about this now. A lot of women think that if men have all these pickup books, you know what I'm talking about, the game and everything. Fascinating, by the way, how men teach other men how to pick up women and get them into bed. I think my husband still has a book that says how to get beautiful women in bed. Ridiculous. But, a lot of women, when they see this on a men's shelf, they're like, and this is very much frowned upon. This is today, especially, you know, in everything that's going on right now in the media, and masculinity is toxic and everything, you know, if you see something like a man would actually hide this. And this is the problem. And I write about this, I talk about this in my podcast, and it's also in my program, that, you know, we live in a world today that is depriving men of their masculinity, that is shaming men about their masculinity. And that's why today, more than ever, you know, when you ask this question, where are the great men? Well, the great men are out there, but a lot of them are even scared to all own their masculinity. Well, I wouldn't qualify that as a great, healthy, committed man, like not committed, but well, maybe he's committed, but you know what I mean? A man who's standing strong in his masculinity will not be afraid. He will not settle down under the umbrella of I'm a feminist, quote, you know, because he stands strong in his masculinity. He knows that his masculinity is not toxic, and he's proud to be a man. And that's a man that you probably want to be with, and not a man who hides behind the slogans of we should all be feminists. What does that even mean? Yeah, of course we should all be feminists, but like, you know, you want a man who leads, you want a man who you can trust, and to be that protector and the provider. I think I digressed, but anyways, well, yes, back to the books. So if a man has these books, like my husband, he has like 5 or 6 books that, you know, Neil Strauss, The Game, How to Get Beautiful Women in Bed. Like, we laugh about it now, but I actually look at this as, you know what? This is a good sign. This man actually took an effort and was very much interested in how to pick up women and even how to get them into bed. This tells me, I mean, of course, we got to be realistic about this. I can't tell you, you know, is this good or bad? It's like, it's not neither nor. When men hit puberty, when boys hit puberty, this is it. It's all about women. Like, everything they can think about, it's women. And it's getting into bed with women. It's the reality of things. You can't change that. You gotta accept that and see how you can work with it. And as men mature, they realize that, you know, there are other parts of their body that they need to think through, and they go past this, hopefully, right? As they mature, as they get into personal growth, and as their relationships with women mature, they realize it's not only about sex, and it's not only about picking up. And even the guy who wrote the book, The Game, Neil Strauss, he wrote another book called The Truth. And the truth is actually in that, you know. And there's Mark Manson, for example, by the way, Mark Manson, who wrote the amazing books of, you know, the subtle art of not giving a fuck, and the other one, I can't even remember his second one. Huge man, right? His first book was all about models, how to pick up women through honesty, or how to attract women through honesty. He was actually a relationship blogger in the beginning. A lot of people don't know this. I actually wanted to get him on my first podcast. But anyways, you know, so if you see those books on a man's shelf, do not dare to shame a man for it. I usually don't speak in these strong words, but that's what I would really recommend. This should be a good sign, because a man is really interested in how to pick up women and how to get their attention. He's in his masculine. How do I go and claim her? How much rejection men are facing on a daily basis, women have no idea. So that's why I believe that the work that I do with women is so powerful, because it really opens up their eyes to the male journey, to their experience of what it is to be a man, dealing with women, picking up women, going across the bar and actually asking for her number, asking for it. Do you know how much pressure it puts on them? Men constantly deal with rejection from women. So next time when you reject a man, which you would have to, I very much encourage you to do it gracefully, and understand that as a woman, you have a tremendous impact on a man's life. And a lot of the times we underestimate it so much. We, you know, in the program I also teach, I'm talking about my program. This is not about my program, but, you know, like I just remember what I teach in the program. We talk about, you know, how much a woman is pretty much almost a self-worth tool for a man. It shouldn't be like this, but this is how it begins. You know, there's a lot of competition between teenage boys and so on. So there's still competition between men, right? So anyways, without getting into too much detail, if you see those books on his shelf, do not shame a man for it. See this, of course, it depends where he is. Like, there's plenty of guys in their 30s who haven't passed that stage. They're still in the pickup stage and just getting into bed. Okay, well, great. I mean, not great, but good for you. You live a shallow life. If it's all about sex and picking up women, they're players, and they're going to be players until one day they're going to wake up alone and are going to realize that the life that they're living is not fulfilling. But it's their choice, right? But I still feel that majority of men are great men who actually want to settle down with a woman. Like yesterday, I had a conversation with this guy who was about, well, evolutionary speaking and biologically speaking, most men are not wired for monogamy, and as humans we're not wired for monogamy. And there's great books out there, The Red Queen and Sex at Dawn and the idea of a red pill and everything. If you're interested, go check it out. But I still, that's why, kind of the conclusion is that's why divorce rates happen. The divorce rates are so high because humans are not programmed to be with each other for life. And what I told this guy, I was like, look, I also don't have that expectation that you have to be with one person for life. Like, I very much would love to stay married to my man because I deeply love him, and we're really working on having this, like, relationships are work and marriages work, but for me it's worth it, especially when you have a family, right? And I don't expect that I'm going to be with him my whole life. I really hope so, but I'm also very realistic. So most men and women would still like to settle. I'd say even more so women than men, just because of parental investment in evolutionary psychology. But men will do so as well because they realize, yes, of course they would love to have 300 women around, and well, not 300, but you know what I mean, fool around all day and everything. But they realize in the society structure that we live today, monogamy, long committed relationships are the way to go. Fortunately or unfortunately for them, fortunately for us women, obviously, but for men it's not that easy. And it's normal to expect that there is going to be temptation, there is going to be seduction, and it's work. But in the end, it's worth it, I think, in my personal opinion. So, all right. So getting back to, don't stop your funnel until you get claimed. So again, keep going through the exposure, date constantly, rinse and repeat. And this has to become a way of life if you're a single woman, constantly exposing yourself, going on dates, and not assuming that you are in a relationship until a man brings up that conversation. So, that's what I wrote here. You're in a relationship or you're in a relationship. Oh yeah, and I wanted to tell you the story. When I was dating my man, I digress in 300 different directions. When I was dating my man, I'll give you an example. We actually didn't have an explicit conversation about, is this exclusive? But he asked me, so I think we were dating about, 1 to 2 months. We were in Colombia, Medellin. I was having the time of my life. I didn't even notice him, whatever. But then yesterday I told you in episode 5, I told you rule number 5 was all about why to trust a man's actions more than his words. And I gave you an example of when everything transformed for us and I started trusting my man and trusting because he showed me through his action that he's trustworthy and I could really count on his masculinity and to be there for me as a man. Going forward, what happened is that he was going on a trip to the US and then moving to Mexico. And then he told me, do you want to come with me to Mexico to live with me in this rooftop pool apartment? And I'm like, hell yes. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I think I was already in love with this man by then, and it was just so amazing that I could not say no. But with that question, that's when the claim was there. And I said yes, and we started living together. I mean, if you live together, like this is obvious that you are in a relationship, right? This is the claim. So, so this was my example, and if you have any other examples, let me know. But generally, it's a conversation. It's a conversation that a man brings up. Where is this going? ? I want you to be my woman. Let's get exclusive, or some sort of an explicit claim on you. And so this is how you avoid situationships, almost relationships, or whatever type of a relationship that you feel like you are in. So do not assume. And again, becoming intimate with a man increases the chances of attachment for you towards him. It is very hard for a woman to continue seeing a man long term and while becoming intimate or having sex with him and think that you're not in a relationship. Like that's a mistake. Well, in my opinion, it's very hard to do it women constantly attach. Again, why? Because evolutionary speaking, as soon as we're intimate with a man, our body and the whole system is wired to attach because the chances of pregnancy are so high. So if you can not get intimate, I mean, who am I to tell? I actually slept with my husband on the first date, which was terrible, by the way. But anyways, it progressed, but I was young, so I have an excuse. But, no judgment there. If you, if you feel like you can date 3 men at a time and get intimate with all of them and maintain non-relationship status, good for you. But I wouldn't be able to do it. And I think most women won't. So that's why I really recommend that, slow down your horses and just be really careful about it. But obviously it's your choice. So the action step, if you have any questions, by the way, let me know and I'll answer them. Action step from here is, are you currently in one of those situationships, almost relationships, or one of those relationships where like, oh my God, I don't know where this is going, but we kind of continue seeing each other and I think this is a relationship. If you're in one of that you just assumed you're in a relationship and you didn't have a discussion about exclusivity, or more importantly, he didn't bring that, because for men, he's not going to bring the claim on you if things are easy. Like if he knows you're always there, you're not seeing anyone else and everything is great, you're intimate, he's coming to your place, you're going to it's all great. Why would he move things forward? I mean, yes, he would, ideally, naturally, but things are going well. There's no competition, there's no other things, things like that. So, he's comfortable. And when a man is comfortable, he's comfortable. If nothing is broken, don't fix it, is a masculine mantra. And so, if you are in such a relationship, time to move, girl, and start exposing yourself and doing your funnel. Right? So, yeah, time to continue your funnel and move on. You can still continue seeing him. You can still doing that, but don't assume that you're in a relationship. If he's pulling back and he, like another woman told me in a discovery call, she said, he's not sure. Well, if he's telling you he's not sure, you're not sure either. Moving on. You can still expose yourself to him, but if he's pulling back, you're pulling back. Do not run after him, because if you run after him, this is doomed from the beginning. So, are you currently in a situationship? Yes, no? If yes, time to move on, start doing your funnel, and do not stop it until you get claimed. So, question here, without events going on, do you suggest Tinder or which one? I mean, look, yeah, I understand, at the time of this recording, we're still in COVID, depending on, where you go. Where I live here in Australia, we can go, obviously social distancing, but, bars are open and cafes are open. I mean, look, how to meet new people with this quarantine. Yeah, that's a good conversation to have, look, Venera, and, again, in the women that I work with, who constantly have those conversations. I know that, for example, women who I work with who are in New York, they go on social distancing dates, for example. There's always ways, and obviously this is not permanent. So get creative. How could you put yourself out there? Even online dating, you could, with this knowledge of becoming curious about dating, of creating your funnel, not being there on a date and being like, what are you looking for? Don't do that. You're dating, you're exposing yourself, I mean, technically you could classify online dating and Tinder as exposing yourself, but it's an artificial environment of exposing yourself, right? And I know, I've worked with women who came to me and said, oh, I hate online dating. And then once they've been exposed to this mindset and their femininity and their body, they've changed their attitude towards online dating. They've now blocking like crazy men who send them dick pics or just are unreasonable or whatever, and they're continuing the conversation with that. So you can consider that, and potentially you could just wait it out, or see if you could do online meetups, get creative. I mean, oh my God, during this COVID thing, how many things happened naturally. People were meeting up and having these Zoom backgrounds and whatever. Get creative about exposing there. And it's not, yes, it is about action steps, but it's also about your perspective, changing your perspective to exposure and to the whole dating funnel. And most important, changing your perspective towards men. And ultimately, it's about you being in the body, working on your beliefs and so on and so on. Because honestly, a lot of the women that we know, that just stumbled upon great men who are in their masculine and they're having amazing relationships and marriages. Those women didn't do any of this stuff, right? Like dating funnel, rules for being clean, like, you know, this is like check, check, check. This is not rules. Like, I just came up with them based on my experience and research and everything to give you like a guideline, right? Like, I needed to put it together somehow. And of course, I've been influenced by other things that I read. But a lot of the time, when a woman knows this naturally, it's in her body, she's worked with her limiting beliefs about men, or maybe she was very lucky, which is very rare, to not have them. She was perhaps raised by, she has seen a great relationship model between mom and dad. Mom who was deeply embodied in her feminine, dad who was embodied in his masculine. He was treating men great, women great. They still have an amazing relationship. She was raised in a culture. I mean, this is pretty much impossible. This is a perfect scenario, especially today. But there are women like that, you know, and they just stumble upon it. Well, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, this was not my journey. I had to work on it, right? I had to change myself a lot, and I had to change my attitude towards men and towards dating and so on and so forth. So, Venera, for you, I mean, you can meet men everywhere. I mean, you know, people still date, people still have sex, people still get into relationships, even during COVID. Humans are a species that's deeply creative and is keen for survival and, most importantly, procreation, right? I mean, obviously, evolutionary speaking, everything we do, get into relationships, have sex, go into love, whatever, is to procreate. Although humans are the species that have sex besides procreation for enjoyment and pleasure. But, you know, even if we were in quarantine for years, trust me, we will find a way to expose. Like, look, if you're asking yourself, how do I expose myself? Men ask themselves, how do I get women? Or how do I pick up women and date? Right? So we are all looking for each other. Okay, awesome. All right, ladies. Well, this was it for today. Thank you so much. I'm having a lot of fun on these, on recording these episodes. Obviously, it takes time, but I'm seeing great action. I think this is. I hope this is really helping you. If you have any questions, then let me know on Instagram or anywhere else. That you can ask me a question, probably mostly on Instagram. And again, this episode is going to be available on the podcast and also in IGTV. All right, so I just stopped my recording for the episode. If you have any other questions, I'll give you 30 seconds. Thank you. I love you too, Venera. Let me know. So next up we got, tomorrow, tomorrow I'm on a break. Tomorrow is a Sunday for me. My husband's away, so I'm just tuning out and getting into my body and myself. So on Sunday night, 8 p.m. PST, which is going to be my Monday, we're going to talk about rule number 7, which is don't let your men become your life project. Oh my God, how many women do this? We're going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about rule number 8, practice the 80-20 of advice giving. That's a really important one, a very interesting one. Then we're going to talk about don't play the 50-50 game, based on an article I wrote. And then happy wife, happy life, rule number 10, the most important rule that summarizes them all. And the last one, a bonus rule actually that I'm going to share, is going to be rule number 11, practice the essential forgotten skill, embodiment. I'm a feminine embodiment coach, so I'm very excited to share with you some of the principles of embodiment and how and why women need to get into their bodies. All right, ladies, have a great night. Have a good day wherever you are. And I will catch you on Sunday night, 8 p.m. PST. Mwah.